It appears that multiple winter storms are headed our way, so if you are a big fan of winter weather, you are certainly going to enjoy this video. If you are not, well, we all have to prepare for it regardless. Winter storm number 1 is the weekend snowstorm that is moving into the picture. We are already forecasting over a foot of snow across parts of the Midwest. We will begin with the specific details on that first storm, and then we will discuss a time frame for next week that also carries a risk for a winter storm. Finally, we will round out the video by discussing this rather unusual pattern as a whole and what it might bring as we move deeper into the month of December. I have good reason to believe that we could continue to have these shots of very cold air, and of course, if that air meets up with moisture, we are going to continue to see chances for winter storms. We will cover that at the very end of the video. My name is Mitch. Good Thursday evening to you. I hope you all have had a wonderful Thanksgiving and a very happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. I am truly thankful for everyone on this channel, and I deeply appreciate you giving me a platform to talk about what I love, which is the weather. Please subscribe if you have not already. Like the video if you find it helpful. If there is anything I can keep in my thoughts and prayers for any of you, please feel free to leave a note in the comments below. Let's get started in that, because we have a great deal to cover. We will begin with winter storm number 1. As I mentioned, this system is already beginning to move in, but we will start our forecast with tomorrow morning. Now, this map is in Eastern time, so it says 9 o'clock in the morning. You will want to back that up an hour for Central time. So we are going to look at the NAM model here and just focus on one model. We already have this area of heavy precipitation, which appears as a finger of heavy moisture moving across the Dakotas and starting to enter areas of Nebraska. Now, as we continue to move forward in time here, we are proceeding in about 6-hour intervals. We move ahead to about 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. At this point, snow is beginning to move into parts of Iowa and into areas of extreme southwest Minnesota. And we have what looks like a narrow band, but it is not truly narrow, but rather an area of snow moving through parts of the Dakotas. This could be quite heavy snow where it is falling. However, some areas will have a very sharp cutoff, such as Rapid City not receiving anything, while Pierre is getting snow. We will continue to move this into tomorrow evening. This is around 8 or 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Very heavy snow will begin to move into parts of Iowa. I know you see this green color around the blue. Blue represents snow and green is typically rain, but in this specific instance, the green is not rain, it is also snow. So please just disregard that distinction. As we continue to move forward, there is a bit of a wintry battleground developing here in Omaha. Now, I do believe this is rain down here, and you can see the pink and purple colors. Do not focus too much on the precise details. This could be a wintry mix of some sleet and perhaps even some freezing rain. In fact, a little bit of ice is forecast for this region. Now, let us not completely ignore Wyoming over here. Some snow could be flying around in Casper, with a little bit of snow across the Rockies in Colorado. It is still snowing back in Bismarck and Pierre, but as we continue to advance this forward, let's go all the way to what we will call the middle of the night tomorrow night. This is around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It will be snowing in Minneapolis. How far north this band of snow will reach is a significant question. It is still snowing back here in the Dakotas. We even have a trailing area of snow in western Nebraska. And there is that wintry mix, for example, in Lincoln. It is snowing in Omaha on this particular model run, but a wintry mix of sleet, freezing rain, and maybe snow is possible in this area. This is because a low-pressure system is moving in, bringing a lot of warm air aloft. It might be cold enough at the surface for winter weather, but high above us, many of those snowflakes are melting. So, let's shift this view a little more this way, and let's get this back in motion. All right, this is where it becomes honestly fascinating to me. I have been talking to some people here in St. Louis on X, on social media, and St. Louis is just a remarkable area for weather. This is around 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. And listen, this right here could be very heavy wet snow in St. Louis. I am talking about snowflakes the size of large cotton balls. I always joke, and I said on X earlier, snowflakes the size of minivans, though not literally, of course. But this could be very heavy wet snow to kickstart your morning Saturday morning in St. Louis. The question is, will it remain as snow? I do not believe it will. But let's continue to put this in motion. For Chicago, it is snowing quite heavily at daybreak on Saturday. You all can tell I truly love talking about snow. I live here in central South Carolina, where we hardly ever see snow, but I am excited for all of you. I know not everyone likes snow, though, but this is heavy, wet snow in Des Moines, with Dubuque getting snow. Davenport, Quincy, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Oshkosh are all seeing it, and it is just beginning to move into, say, Green Bay. Then we take it all the way to about midday Saturday, around 11 o'clock in the morning,
right around lunchtime, and it is snowing across almost the entirety of Iowa. It is still snowing back in Omaha and Lincoln. I am going to forget to mention a whole lot of areas, I am sure. Minneapolis, you are right on the northern fringe of the heaviest moisture, but it is certainly plenty cold enough to see snow. In Green Bay, it is snowing. Madison as well. These darker corridors of color right here indicate extremely heavy snow. But if you look down here at St. Louis, you can see how it starts off as snow and then changes over to rain. So you might begin with a quick few inches or maybe even several inches of heavy wet snow, and then it will change to a cold rain. That can be very disappointing for snow lovers, can it? Colder air will follow, however, and that will freeze up any snow that does fall, if you are a fan of that sort of thing. But if we continue to keep this in motion, folks, and I know this is moving rather slowly, but I like to go over all the details in the timeline. This is getting into about 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and snow is basically overspreading the entirety of Michigan, both upper and lower Michigan. And just to back it up a little bit, let's discuss this timeline. Look at Indianapolis, a highly populated area. It starts off as heavy, wet snow on the NAM model. I know this looks green, but this will be starting off as very large snowflakes. The same is true for Evansville. Much like St. Louis, it could start as very heavy, wet snow. Heavens, even in areas you see down here in western Kentucky, could start as extremely heavy, wet snow, but then it will quickly change over to rain. And then we go all the way out to, say, Saturday evening, and we just have a full-fledged, widespread snowstorm across the Midwest and Great Lakes region. I mean, Chicago at this point, Saturday evening, you are right in the middle of a classic snowstorm. You all have been a bit overdue for winter weather lately, and I say that on behalf of the winter weather fans. I know a lot of people up here are not fans of winter weather. I am a huge winter weather fan, as you all know. But Toledo and Detroit are getting snow. And then as we start to move into the middle of the night, and this is as far out as we have on the NAM model, Saturday night into Sunday morning, this is at midnight, and this entire snowstorm is continuing. Peoria and Springfield are still seeing snow. Chicago is still snowing. Detroit, all of Michigan, and look how heavy this snow is in Cleveland. Canton and Columbus are even seeing snow. It is even snowing in parts of Cincinnati down here, and in the northern areas of Kentucky. And this is as far out as we can go. We are going to have to pick up where we leave off here, and as we continue to keep this in motion, we get into Sunday morning, and the last little bit of this storm begins to head east. It will still be snowing for most of Michigan, but as you can tell, Ohio starts to switch. You could start off with heavy wet snow, but then it will begin to change to just good old-fashioned rain before cold air filters in behind it. And I do want to show some attention to the northeast with this system. It has trended a little bit colder. This is around midday on Sunday, and it does show precipitation moving in. This could be heavy wet snow across New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, northern Pennsylvania, and the favored cold air damming regions of Pennsylvania like the Allegheny Mountains, western Maryland, the highlands of West Virginia, and the Blue Ridge Mountains and Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. This pink color could indicate freezing rain. The orange suggests a mixture of sleet and freezing rain. And as we start to get into Sunday evening, a lot of these areas could just switch to plain old rain. For the Interstate 95 corridor, it is just not your turn yet. But please stay tuned. I have a section of the video for you all. There could be a little glimmer of hope for the winter weather fans, but the interior northeast is getting mainly snow, especially in those higher elevations, and then the cold air will filter in behind the system. We might have a period of lake effect snow behind it. All right, so now for the part that everyone wants to hear about. And let's make our way from west to east. I know I do not have a lot of people tuning in from Montana, but I feel bad for completely leaving out Montana. So this is for Montana. This is how much snow you are expecting with this storm. You can pause the screen if you need to. And then we start to move east. This is North Dakota. Bismarck can expect 2 to 5 inches of snow. Dickinson, 2 to 5. I am just trying to mention a couple of areas. Fargo looks to be just too far north to see the heaviest of the snow. We will drop down to South Dakota. Now this is where things could begin to change a little bit as far as more heavy snow. And I will need to remember,
even though you cannot literally remind me because I am not broadcasting live right now, that I need to pull up the watches and warnings map just to show you who has winter storm watches, warnings, and winter weather advisories. But we have had an upgrade from a winter storm watch to a winter storm warning across parts of South Dakota over the last couple of hours. But for Pierre, 2 to 6 inches of snow, Sioux Falls, 4 to 6, Brookings, 4 to 6, and Watertown, 2 to 4.
For our friends in Aberdeen, we are forecasting 3 to 5 inches of snow. This is where the situation becomes a little more complex. Omaha is looking at 3 to 8 inches of snow, while Lincoln could see anywhere from 1 inch to a half a foot. Over in Sioux City, we expect 5 to 11 inches, and some ice is also possible in this region, perhaps a couple of tenths of an inch. In York, the forecast calls for a tenth to a quarter of an inch of freezing rain. So this is certainly a tricky area that could see a bit of a wintry mix. Now, as we look at Minnesota, we will focus on the southern half of the state. For Minneapolis itself, we could receive 3 to 7 inches of snow. Currently, there is a winter weather advisory in effect for Minneapolis, and I believe that could be upgraded to a winter storm warning. You are located just to the north of the heaviest precipitation, so I would advise you to watch for more frequent updates. In the southern areas of Minnesota, you could see anywhere from half a foot to a full foot of snow, depending on your exact location. Continuing onward, we now look at Iowa. Iowa is preparing to be a primary area for heavy, wet snow. A significant portion of Iowa will likely receive at least a half a foot of snow. The only areas that might see less are the southwestern sections of the state, where the low pressure system will track very close. But for Des Moines, we are forecasting 8 to 13 inches, and in Ames, 9 to 14 inches. Fort Dodge is expecting a similar amount. Waterloo is forecast for 9 to 13 inches, and Dubuque could see 8 to 12. A little freezing rain is possible in this area as well, perhaps a few hundredths of an inch. My apologies, I misspoke earlier. It will be a few hundredths of an inch of ice, not a couple of tenths. That larger amount of freezing rain is possible in the southwestern areas of the state. I also want to provide an update for the Kansas City area. For areas of northern Missouri, Kirksville is expecting 4 to 8 inches of snow. Bethany could see 2 to 6 inches, and Maryville 1 to 5. For Kansas City, you might see a wintry mix to begin this storm. However, I am not expecting any significant winter weather there. And then we move up to Wisconsin, where Green Bay is forecasting 6 to 8 inches of snow. In this area, the air is plenty cold enough for snow. You are just a bit too far north of the heaviest snowfall band. So it could be anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow across this region. The further south you are, the more snow is expected. As we move further south, Eau Claire is looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow. Madison is expecting 7 to 12 inches. Platteville could see 8 to 12 inches of snow. And La Crosse is forecast for 6 to 10 inches of snow. Please feel free to pause the screen if you need to at any point. I always try to show as many graphics as I can because I truly believe in being as thorough as possible. This is not to praise myself in any way, but I feel a responsibility to be one of the most detailed weather resources available to you. I understand that not everyone has the time to watch a weather update that lasts 30 minutes, and I completely respect that. However, providing this level of detail is the best way I know to keep you fully informed, and it is the way I am committed to doing it. Now for Milwaukee, 9 to 18 inches of snow is in the forecast. Janesville is also expecting 9 to 18 inches. That means we could see nearly 1.5 feet of snow in these areas. We are even approaching the 20-inch mark in places like Port Washington. That is a very impressive amount. It is important to note this is not lake effect snow. This is simply a good, old-fashioned, large snowstorm. In the Quad Cities, we are forecasting 8 to 12 inches. Freeport could see 8 to 13 inches of snow. For Princeton, the forecast is 8 to 12 inches, and Peoria is expecting 7 to 11. Now, turning our attention to Chicago, let us see if we have an updated graphic. We always want to bring you the latest information. Yes, here we are. Now, I do not blame the forecasters in Chicago for being conservative. Sometimes these graphics can be a bit slow to load. I hope you can see that clearly. For Chicago, the forecast is 6 to 8 inches of snow. Rockford is expecting 8 to 12 inches of snow. The website for this area can sometimes be a bit temperamental for me. This is not an issue with my internet connection. Their site just behaves oddly at times. But hopefully you can see it well now. Joliet is expecting 6 to 8 inches of snow. For Chicago, you could receive much more snow than this. I believe they are being cautious, which is understandable. Heading further south in Illinois, Lincoln is forecast for 6 to 12 inches, Bloomington 7 to 14, and Peoria could see 9 to 17 inches of snow. You may notice that some of these graphics are slightly different, and that is simply due to the timing of when each forecast was updated. The further south we go, however, the more questions we have in the forecast. For example, just 4 to 8 inches are expected in Litchfield. Then we head down to the St. Louis area. Right now in St. Louis, they are forecasting a quick 2 to 4 inches of heavy, wet snow. But I am telling you, I am concerned this is going to catch people by surprise down there on Saturday morning. I plan to go over the atmospheric conditions for this area in more detail in tomorrow's videos, but the setup is absolutely locked and loaded for heavy, wet, pasty snow once you get down to the Interstate 70 corridor. This could be very heavy precipitation. So I would advise everyone to continue to tune in for updates around the St. Louis area. Currently, the forecast is 2 to 4 inches. You can see some other nearby areas on your screen. Now heading back up into Michigan, more snow is on the way for the Upper Peninsula. Some of these totals are combining the lake effect snow that is ongoing right now, so you do have to factor that into the overall numbers. A viewer correctly pointed out that I overlooked Michigan in this morning's video, and you were right. I did not mean to. It is just challenging because the forecasts are combining that ongoing lake effect snow. But looking at the totals now, Kalamazoo is expecting 11 to 16 inches of snow. Grand Rapids is forecast for 10 to 15 inches, and Flint could see a wide range from 4 to 10 inches. A great deal of snow is on the way. Detroit is expecting 4 to 9 inches. I know we have many dedicated viewers in the Detroit area who will be watching this very closely. It is certainly looking like a significant storm for you. Now, for northern Indiana, we are anticipating a major event in this region. A tremendous amount of snow is on the way. As you can see, many of these areas are forecast to receive from half a foot to over a foot of snow. Indianapolis is in a tricky spot where you could get an inch or you could get half a foot. If we follow the North American model, you will likely get a half a foot of snow. As you head up the interstate, Lafayette is expecting 5 to 11 inches, and Marion is forecast for 3 to 9 inches of snow. South of Indianapolis, the forecast is less certain, but a few inches of snow are still possible. Evansville is in a tricky location. It could receive nothing or perhaps 1 to 2 inches. For Louisville, the western and northern areas of Kentucky may also see some accumulation. It could be just a dusting, or somebody could manage to get an inch or 2 of snow. And in northern Ohio, this forecast is a combination of lake effect snow and the incoming storm. And please note, this particular map only goes out to 7 o'clock Sunday morning, folks, so this does not represent the entirety of the storm. But this is how much they are expecting in this area between now and 7 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. It could be a little bit more than this, but Cincinnati is expecting about a half an inch of snow. Columbus is forecast for about an inch, and Dayton could see an inch or 2 of snow. Now, speaking of the Northeast, the forecast is tough. The Northeast is tough because you have the lake effect snows ongoing right now. So you are combining what is on the way with this weekend storm and what is already happening with the lake effect snow. So everything is somewhat merged together here. But as you can tell, the main takeaway from this is that this is an event for interior New England. The Interstate 95 corridor is not going to get much from this storm. However, I do want to watch for a difficult wintry mix for the usual areas of West Virginia, Western Maryland, the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, and Virginia, and even all the way down into North Carolina. And sure enough, there is a signal for some ice showing up on the European model. A few hundredths of an inch of ice, maybe even a tenth of an inch of ice. I think there will be a challenging wintry mix here as we are getting into Sunday. We will have more details on that when they become available. Let us switch gears and talk about next week. Looking ahead to December 1st, which is next Monday, we have another system to analyze. Some energy is starting to come together and will kickstart our Monday morning. On December 1st, we will have some moderate to light snow flying around across Colorado, northern New Mexico, and Kansas. And as we continue to move forward, we see a bit of a connection of this moisture with some light snow flying around here in Oklahoma, eastern Kansas, and into Missouri.
Then the areas of precipitation could connect here in northern Arkansas, where some snow is possible, though it may be more of a wintry mix.
A wintry mix is even possible, I would say, in places like Memphis and maybe Little Rock. Then we continue to head on through, and yes, that is some heavier snow showing up in Tennessee, and I think that is very, very possible. Now, if we continue with the European model and we look into the eastern United States, here it comes. And this is when the system becomes more energized. This is Tuesday morning. It is all rain across the southeast, but you see that difficult pink shading. That indicates freezing rain for the favored cold air damming regions of the North Carolina mountains and the foothills. But that is snow in Middle Tennessee and getting into Kentucky. And this is not just light snow, that is heavy snow too. We will have to see how this is going to unfold. There is a bit of a lighter area of snow to the north, and then a 997 millibar low pressure system off the coast of the mid-Atlantic. That will certainly be strong enough to produce significant weather. The question is, will the cold air be in place? For the Carolinas, it looks to be mainly rain. Most of Virginia too, and the Delmarva Tidewater area. But for northern Virginia, that is snow. For West Virginia, that is snow. And for areas of Ohio and eastern Kentucky, that is also snow. That is snow in New York City, northern New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, and even Washington, D.C. and Boston. That is heavy, wet snow with a 992 millibar low off the coast. If this forecast is correct, this would be Tuesday night and Wednesday morning of next week. That would be a snowstorm for Boston. We just have to work out the details. Now, what about the GFS model? This particular run is processing right now, and I think we have the entirety of the information. We will take it all the way to Monday morning. I have not even had a chance to look at this one yet. So the GFS model is a lot more aggressive with just a wintry mix in Arkansas and does not bring the snow as far south in Oklahoma. However, it does show a band of moderate snow moving through Kansas and entering northern Missouri. This track would take it over Kansas City and could, if the storm develops this way on Monday, leave some accumulating snow in the St. Louis area. My apologies, I meant to say Kansas City, although St. Louis may see some as well. This system also brings an unpleasant wintry mix to central and northern Arkansas, so we will have to see if the GFS model is correct. The storm then progresses to the east. Let us go ahead and update the map. As you can see from the GFS model, that is the first storm system we have already analyzed. Now, here comes the second storm system, which is a very well-developed low-pressure system. This low pressure is tracking directly across the Appalachians, which means this will be all rain for the Mid-South. This system is tracking farther north, and it will essentially be snow falling on top of more snow from the system that preceded it. Notice that classic cold air damming signal appearing in the usual areas, which are the foothills and mountains of the Appalachian Mountains. This brings us into Tuesday morning with the low pressure center moving right across the Carolinas, making this a significant winter storm for Ohio and for Pennsylvania. A messy wintry mix is expected, and it even shows a wintry mix for New York City. However, this will be primarily rain because of how close the low pressure center is. This would also create a significant mixing issue in southern New England. But for the interior Northeast, because the cold air is already established, this would become a major snowstorm for you folks. Following that, we will need to carefully watch what happens next. Now, regarding the snow forecast from this, we are looking at the European ensemble model. This is shown in 3-day increments. It indicates a footprint of snow across parts of the Central Plains and Missouri. 1 to 2 inches of snow is possible from this, which is likely enough to warrant a winter weather advisory. This is the outlook for this coming weekend. This is what could potentially happen as we head into early next week. We are seeing a signal for a few hundredths of an inch of ice, according to a blend of all the models, appearing in Arkansas, Missouri, and throughout the mid-Mississippi Valley region. Then we can turn our attention to the forecast for the eastern United States. That large area of snow you see right here is what is occurring at this moment. Then you will notice another area appearing, which represents the strong signal we are seeing for the winter storm risk next week. There is an average of a couple of inches of snow across the Ohio Valley, but an average of a few inches of snow across the Northeast. Indeed,
Even look at Northern Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic.
So that is certainly a very strong signal. I am getting a bit distracted by our dog barking in the background, and I do apologize for that. But this is a very strong signal for the Northeast. We are even seeing a 4 to 5 inch snowfall average across parts of New England. That is a rather solid indicator. And if we take a look at the potential for ice from this, there is a bit of a signal for that as well. This represents the ice potential for the midweek storm as we move into next week. Then, this is a combination of the weekend storm and what could happen next week across the Mid-Atlantic. So we will continue to sort through all of this information for you. Our primary focus right now is the system arriving this weekend. And then we will be able to provide you with much more detailed information on this potential winter storm for next week. Now let's talk about the overall weather pattern, folks. I have good reason to believe that December is going to continue to deliver cold, Arctic air down into the lower 48 states, along with the potential for more winter storms. So we will begin our outlook for next week. The blue and green colors on the map indicate lower pressure. Then you can see the areas in red, orange, and pink, which represent higher pressure. I seem to have forgotten to open my drawing tool, so I cannot draw on the map for you. I may be able to pull it up here in just a moment. But what we see is a ridge of high pressure extending up into Alaska. We refer to this pattern as a negative EPO, which helps to dislodge cold air southward into an active storm track. You can see this small extension in blue right here. This indicates lower pressure and represents our storm system signal for next week. And this is our source of cold air, which will pump into the available moisture associated with that lower pressure. As we continue to move past this time frame, I want to watch next week very closely, and I know we are looking quite far ahead. There is another signal that is beginning to appear. Whether this will be a cold and dry pattern, I am not yet certain. But this is all the way out in the 6th, 7th, and 8th time frame. So for next weekend, you can see the trough, and this is on the European ensemble model too. This is one of the best tools we can look at for the long range. That is a very strong signal for a trough digging down into the eastern United States with a prominent ridge of high pressure out west. So once again, this pattern will bring cold air and the potential for another storm next weekend. And then we just continue, and please understand, this is getting into the very long range of the forecast. But what I consistently see is an area of lower pressure, or a trough, over parts of Canada and the northern sections of the United States. You can think of this entire blue area as a huge source of cold air. It is like a detached area of the polar vortex. Any storm systems that develop down here to the south will have this cold air available to tap into, which brings a risk of winter weather. And as we go all the way out to the 10th of the month, we do see some movement, but one thing that remains clear is this large area of blue up here. So I do believe that we will continue to see drops of cold air coming down into the lower 48 states. Essentially, what we are doing here, because of all this cold air up north, is building up our supply. Now, this blue does not always mean cold air, but it does represent a trough, which brings cold air. And what it appears we are doing, folks, is creating a vast reserve, you might say, for our cold air source region. So we are truly freezing up the area from which our cold air descends, which is right here. You see, a lot of times when cold air drops down from the higher latitudes, it has a chance to modify and warm up slightly. Well, it may not do that this time. In fact, it could trend even colder. A simpler way to put it is that we have a very strong source of cold air to the north that could come down multiple times throughout the month of December. And this outlook goes all the way out to about the 10th or 11th of the month. If we look at the European ensemble model regarding temperatures compared to average, the blues and the greens indicate colder temperatures. More technically, it means colder than average temperatures. So, you know, if your average temperature is 55 degrees and the forecast is for 10 degrees below average, then your temperature might be in the mid-40s. I do hope that makes sense. The warmer colors that you see on your screen indicate above average temperatures. We will start this off for next Tuesday, and what you will notice is that below average temperatures continue for the central and eastern United States. I know some of you will remember when we were talking about the potential for a much warmer start to December. Well, you can go ahead and set that thought aside because it is no longer in the forecast. We go out about a week from today, and it still looks cold across the eastern United States, while the western United States looks quite warm.
And then, are we going to warm up? Perhaps. But I am not confident that we will. As we go all the way into next weekend, another pool of cold air drops down into the eastern United States. And I do believe we will see a battle with the warmer air trying to push back. But even as we get into the second week of December, around the 8th, 9th, and 10th, another push of cold air descends. And this pattern just continues. And if you take a broader look at this map, our cold air keeps dropping down from the same area up here. It is just one blast of cold air after another. This reinforces what I was just showing you. Now, what I find quite interesting, and I will just pull this up right now as it just occurred to me, is that I did not show you the current watches and warnings for the winter storm that is about to move in this weekend. But we will let that go for now. What I find particularly interesting is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. I must say I have some questions about this outlook. I always get excited to look at this in the winter to see if it supports what we are seeing in the model guidance. This afternoon, this did not align with my expectations, and I believe it may be inaccurate. This 8 to 14 day temperature outlook covers the period from the 5th through the 11th. I do not believe we are going to see chances for above average temperatures for this area of the Southeast. In my professional opinion, we will have below average temperatures for this area. Absolutely. I believe they should have extended this area of blue much farther to the south. I am not certain what data led them to that conclusion. If anything, I would have kept near normal temperatures dropping all the way down into Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. But we can certainly get caught up in the details for a very long time. This is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This covers the 3rd through the 7th. I suppose this makes more sense, but I probably would have trimmed this area back a little bit more. It was just a peculiar outlook from the Climate Prediction Center today. It is a bit puzzling to me. Now, speaking of the MJO, I know this has been a long update. I do enjoy talking about the weather with all of you. On the subject of the MJO, we mentioned, and I do not have anything to draw on this map, that phases 4, 5, and 6 are typically our warmer phases. Phase 7 is the phase we are currently in. This pattern favors cold air coming into the United States. But oftentimes that cold air has to battle a ridge of high pressure over the southeast and the southern tier of the country. It can even affect the eastern United States at times. But it does favor a cold air dump, which is exactly what we are experiencing right now. Today is the 27th, and we should be in phase 7. Phases 8, 1, and 2 are cold phases. And folks, we are heading directly toward phase 8. The latest European model has us moving there quickly by next week and then getting fully into phase 8. And let me tell you, phase 8 is a cold and wintry weather pattern for December in the central and eastern United States and for almost the entire country. So we are getting there. We are moving into a very favorable phase. And folks, what I believe is happening is that our computer models are having a very difficult time resolving this pattern. A very difficult time indeed. The progression of the Madden-Julian oscillation and what that means for our weather. I believe it is a combination of high latitude blocking, the stretched polar vortex, and the sudden stratospheric warming. All of that complex activity I decided to step away from discussing about a week ago. I just do not believe we are knowledgeable enough on that subject to speak about it with confidence. And while I can only speak for myself, after reading the analyses of many others, it is clear that opinions on the sudden stratospheric warming are all across the board, and no one has a firm handle on it yet. That is why I have paused my discussion of it. But what we do know for certain is that there has been a disruption at the top of the globe. This is what dislodges that cold Arctic air and sends it southward. When you combine this with the fact that we are heading toward phase 8 of the Madden-Julian oscillation, the forecast certainly looks promising. That is the update for now. I appreciate all of you. Hopefully this video reaches everyone because I put a great deal of energy into this one and was excited to share it. However, I have noticed these videos are not really getting out to as many folks lately. I am not certain if this is unique to my channel. Perhaps it is because most of my audience is here in the South and news about snow in the North may not be of great interest. I am not entirely sure of the reason, but I do hope these forecasts start to reach more people because I am having a wonderful time discussing these weather patterns with you. So, God bless you all, have a wonderful night, and we will do this again tomorrow morning.